I was born in Martins Point, this community. Did the classic move away, start to explore, but kept coming home. Every time I tried to leave, I'd come back, and so I decided to stop trying to go away. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've always been self-employed my entire adult life, and so the cottage rental business is one. My great-grandparents on my mom's side of the family owned the property. My grandmother was born here every weekend, and every Christmas Eve was my grandmother's big annual tradition. I describe her as the poster child for what every grandmother should be. She continually gave beyond what she was capable of, and she was sort of the matriarch of the community, and she was constantly looking after everyone. She made thousands of peppermint patties, and every year boxes just went out to everyone in the community, in the area around. When the family decided to sell, it sat on the market for a couple of years without any interest. The home needed a lot of work. The value was in the property itself. I was growing this property rental business and started looking for something on the water, and then thought, well, hang on a minute, there's this one that's already in the family. So I did live in this one the first winter after we renovated. I said I want to enjoy it myself after everything we put into it before it starts renting out. We always loved it, so we were always a boating family. We were always doing something on the water. It wasn't until I moved to central Canada and the ocean was no longer accessible to me, that's when I really discovered what it meant to me. There's not many options to go cool off, and you're like, I just want the ocean, seaweed and all. I just want the ocean to jump into. Coming home was sort of when I then reconnected to that and realized that I needed to have my feet planted close by. My parents and I did all of the renovations ourselves. The only things we didn't do was dig a new well and build the kitchen. I hired a company locally to build the kitchen, but I designed it, so everything here is by choice. I needed to sit in the space and let the space speak to me and tell me what it wanted to become and how it wanted to be transformed. Really fun to watch that evolve as we were tearing the place apart and saying, oh, okay, we can use that, we can use that. An interior space could take 1,000,001 different shapes. And so it's like, oh, well, why not go after this really cool photo that I saw, or what about this one that's really industrial? And sometimes I've walked through homes where it almost felt like they forced it to become something that didn't quite feel natural. And so in that sense, I like to sit in the home, try and picture where windows and doors would be. I would tape off where the island would go or where a bed would go in a room, and just sort of find the flow that felt right. I then discovered, I'm like, oh, every window you can actually see the ocean, whether it's a little corner or a full view. And so every morning it was like, okay, I'm gonna stand here and I'm gonna drink my coffee and look out this window and just really take in the view. Rustic meets modern is sort of my personal theme. The other homes incorporated some darker colors. This one stayed a bit more bright and airy. I wanted it to feel beachy, and so I love finding ways that blend those quirky traits and some rustic but clean contemporary lines. My grandfather was still alive while we were doing the renovations, and so we would talk about it with him and we'd show him photos. And I hoped that he would come see it when it was finished. I knew that would probably be a really difficult experience for him. In the end, he chose not to, and so I wasn't really hurt. I'm assuming he was holding on to the memories that he had there. I mean, he lived here his entire life too, and watched his family grow up. I also wouldn't have wanted to jeopardize those memories that he was holding on to. Just as you crest the little hill before you reach this property, it's sort of lined with trees a little bit overhead, and then this little vista and view as the peninsula that we're on narrows, and then this property is sitting there on the left, and it's just this quaint little cove that it's on. So just that initial greeting that it gives you to me is pretty spectacular in its simple way. It honestly makes me feel grateful that I was able to retain it, and so that I can keep coming back and enjoying it. It wasn't lost to some stranger who just scraped it off or sold it several times over. It's constantly changing and evolving now, so eventually the older people have passed. There are still some community members that would have known my grandparents who are still alive. My parents are a bit more connected to them than I am, but there's still a sense of that here. So it's getting time for a touch-up soon. There's some paint peeling in some areas. Phase 1 was to get the house finished and up and running, and then I do have plans for more landscaping along the ocean, so that will probably start this fall. Far side of our waterfront is just still, it's a raw embankment that's been eroding away, so that needs to be rock walled. But my plan is to put a ground level patio there with some steps down to the little coast beach area. Even though we're right on the ocean, I can still feel a little bit removed. When guests are coming, their kids will go down and play. And so if I can create a bit more of a space down there that becomes a hangout, that would be pretty fun. When it's low tide, there's a bit of a sandbar out there, so you can almost walk to the island that you see when you look into the cove. When it's a really low tide, like on a full moon, you could walk the whole way, but otherwise it's a short swim. As a kid, the idea of going to an island was pretty spectacular. One that you can just like walk or swim over to is kind of a fun feature. The cottage where I live in the summer, I put an outdoor shower. If you've never experienced it, it's kind of fun to be under this hot water, but then a cool breeze blowing at the same time. It's just this neat experience. When I do the next rental, I'm gonna put an outdoor shower. We built this little catwalk from off the deck and then enclosed it in with some similar like decking boards. Wanted to make sure that there was a solid view of the ocean while you're in there. For me, it's almost a sense of instant tranquility. This place definitely has it. No matter how chaotic my world can be, as soon as I park the car and step out, there's this instant release and everything just melts and you're just greeted with this sweeping view of the ocean. I think it's just all the factors that stimulate your senses there in this way that's just... I'm a pretty avid paddler. I used to do a lot of kayaking, but that shifted to stand-up paddleboarding. And so where I'm at now is only 2 minutes away, so a lot of times my morning routine is to jump on the board and then I'll paddle through the cove and I'll go around the island and back through. And so it's, even though I'm not living here, sometimes it feels like I'm still visiting it on a regular basis. I definitely learned a lot about construction. My dad's a bit of a jack of all trades. My dad and I have a dynamic relationship. We can really quickly butt heads, but we can accomplish a lot at the same time. My partner and I scuba dive, and so when we travel, we have these amazing, unique experiences that are below sea level. You have these moments where like there's a whole other world happening below the surface and only a tiny fraction of people ever get to see it. And like I can be home, I can be like burning the midnight oil in the office, and meanwhile down here on this coral reef, like everything's just drifting and the fish are just doing their thing. I have the same perspective of the ocean. You don't always have to physically be touching it or on it to enjoy it. It's there and it's just waiting for you to take it in. It's not asking anything from you, it's not creating any noise. Whether I'm there watching it or not, the ocean's doing its thing. There are these moments where I have these thoughts that I'm like, I just have to sit here and be still and I have to watch it because something really cool may happen that may never happen again. There's something about an old home that you can never recreate in a new build. Someday I would like to experience what a new build feels like, but when you walk into a new home, and they are beautiful, don't get me wrong, but there's sometimes a coldness or a rigidness to the space. There's no dings in the walls, so you're afraid to mark anything. I've always said that old homes have a soul that you just can't recreate. There's just so much has happened in a space that I think does impact what you feel. So when we did the flooring, I didn't want them perfect and polished, and so they were milled and planed, but we didn't sand them after we installed them. There's some of them are a little bit higher than the other, and I left it, and I want it to wear, I want it to chip. We always kept asking, oh, do you think Nanny's watching? Do you think she sees the house? What do you think she would think of this? She was simple in her needs, but if somebody wanted to do something to her home, like my mom and some of her siblings would renovate and give different rooms makeovers, she would never have done it herself, but she was always grateful that somebody else did it for her. I've also considered placing a smaller rental unit on the property. It is big enough to do that. You flip-flop over whether that enhances or detracts. So I don't know, maybe I'm just waiting for it and letting it speak to me for what its future holds.